My name's Dean Partridge. I'm the Environmental Sustainability Manager for Green Hat, responsible for fire safety.
Thanks, Dean. Great. So tell me, guys. And obviously, yourself and Ian, you've been around this industry for a long period of time. Why is fire? Why is a fire strategy such an important component of a construction project nowadays?
I think initially it engages the architect and the design teams together. It starts a communication channels opening. It helps enable a more fluid design within the strategy that can stop any problems occurring at the end. So you're designing in with the structural design and the internal layouts. So that is a much more cost-effective way to get the strategy early doors at early stage, REBA stage, in order to make sure that these things are put in place in bespoke to that particular project, and you're not actually wasting time, effort and money at the end of a project trying to fit these things in when you don't pass building regulation compliance.
And I guess, fire, the tragic case of what happened at Grenfell Tower in London has made so many, councils and organisations so concerned around fire safety and the impact it has on their local community. I guess that has a major impact for a lot of for those companies that are building these new tower blocks, but also the companies that are then trying to repair and retrofit these.
I think the Grenfell incident has brought this into the open now, and people realise now, somewhat belatedly, how important fire strategy is, because what we're seeing now is a lot of retrofitting of blocks where in a lot of cases the tenants themselves have to pay for it. So if you had a proper fire strategy in place right from the very beginning, which is what Dean helps to do, then it will help eradicate these mistakes in the future. Because it is, as you can see with Grenfell, because it was a cost-cutting exercise rather than a risk exercise. Because if they'd carried out their risk strategy properly, they would never have put those inferior materials in place in such places as Grenfell. And hopefully, the good thing that will come out of Grenfell is people will look at fire strategy more now than ever. And that's what we're trying to help people with, is develop their fire strategies.
So say, I'm a construction company and I've got this, big project that I'm looking at. I've just won this tender to work with maybe, a series of, flats or whatever it is that I've got this project. And, where do these guys normally go for this sort of stuff? Because ultimately, I guess there's been lots of different advice floating around in the past, but what is the thing they should do? And even though it might take them a bit of time, why is it so important?
I think it's engagement at an earlier stage. The issue sometimes is you get asked to undertake a fire strategy after the design has been submitted, after a budget cost estimate has been given, after the client expectations and cost have been laid out, and therefore this becomes the backtrack, the stripping out of things that ultimately, in the case of Grenfell, caused this serious implication to the whole of the UK now as a result, and a massive loss of life. So getting them in an early stage, and you can start to design in features that can actually mitigate these additional costs and stop that cost stripping exercise at the end of a project when the budgets have been pushed to their limits. So yes, engaging architects earlier doors is where we are. And the ultimate thing that we try to provide as well is when we appoint for a fire strategy, I come in and do a technical inspection, clerk of works if you like. Is it being done? Fire stopping, fire doors. Have they been done correctly? Have they been properly certificated? Have the sprinkler systems been commissioned, set to work? Is there a maintenance regime for things like Legionella in the sprinkler systems? So it's a full package, not just here's your piece of paper, do this and building regs. Let's go and see this through and give it and look at it as a sustainable approach. So fire is just a part of the design of the principle, but it can be integral if you've got someone with the experience of our team in order to implement the fire strategy along with design, construction, and the rest of the building elements. So mechanical, electrically, that's my background, mechanical, electrical engineering. So I'm able to draw upon that experience then to give a more holistic fire strategy and follow through on fire strategy, which I believe is better for the client.
And I guess that's the beauty of Green Hat, I guess, in a way, isn't it? Because ultimately, as a company, you've you've got provide such a range of support services to construction owners and bosses. Actually, it's not just about, it's about safety, but it's about profitability, it's about quality, it's about sustainability. It's that whole remit of all these things we talk about that you guys are able to work with these companies and say, look, whatever those challenges are that you've got in your business or these gaps, we can help fill it.
Well, I think one of the issues with a lot of the services is that people pay lip service to them. They just want to tick in the box without fully engaging in things. The fire strategy, for example, we have experts here, Dean in particular, who can come up with a cost-effective fire strategy, which means you save money and yet comply with the legislation, make sure you have safe buildings and so on. But it's the same with all the services that we do. I mean, whether you have management systems, they just want the certificate on the wall, they don't fully engage. So a lot of the services that we provide, we help you fully engage, so it means that you have a much more profitable, cost-effective company.
And I guess the other key thing, just, if you're a construction company boss reading this or watching this, and you're thinking, the reality is probably going to think, blimey, my name could be in trouble here. And I guess it's making sure these guys avoid this stuff and being in that position.
Indeed, no, it's all about protecting the client's interests, protecting who we're working for. So, no, it's not just about ensuring minimum building regs compliance. It's trying to instill good practice, best practice, if you like, in a cost-effective manner. You can throw money at anything, but will your business survive? And it's the same with the fire service. Our fire services are still client-focused, still profitability-focused, but ensure that we leave a legacy of safety for the project ongoing. And that's important to any director of any business, any management team, any shareholder of any business, that they've got almost cradle-to-grave services. I know that saying's been done to death, but a cradle-to-grave service with an expert team that we interact with each other in order to get a fluid, cohesive strategy out there that's cost-effective and saves life.
Great. Give me some scenarios of where this would be a real case in point. Where these guys really do have to think about the longer term rather than just the short term.
Well, last week I was in a client meeting with the architects, design team, the principal contractor, fire safety officer and building control. And it was excellent to actually get all those people around the same table to give the point of view. And it was actually to do with sprinkler systems in a commercial building and a residential building. And when we actually, the principal contractor was adamant that wasn't a requirement. Fire safety officer, fire risk assessor, the building control were adamant it was, based on building regs and interpretation. And once we all got round the table, the actual on cost for that particular service was £4,000. The potential saving for building fabric, life, the emergency services to that building, there's no cost to it. So we were protecting that building, the built environment around it, for a cost of £4,000, which would have been stripped out or not assessed if I hadn't put it in my fire risk strategy at the start. There was a particular instance where it failed to meet minimum legislation. I found it and raised it, and it only cost £4,000, and it ticks all the boxes. Now that retrofit, because bear in mind these people around the table wouldn't have let it pass, would have cost £30,000 if they were asked to do it today in retrofit. So they've actually saved £26,000 in one go. Fee for the project, pennies in consideration to that. So that's one instance that's recent. Saved them £26,000.
Great. And just as a general point, you guys engage with a lot of, ultimately the industry is, got a long in the tooth. They don't necessarily want to, everyone wants to maximise the profit that they make from their projects. But just for you in general, the need to make sure things are done right in the current climate is essential, isn't it? Isn't it? It's worth these guys not just paying the minimum and ticking the box, investing in these systems, investing in these structures, pay such dividends, not just in terms of what they get in terms of the results, but it also protects them from potential legislation and even criminal activity and convictions in the future.
The one thing, if I had to give one bit of advice to an owner of a construction company, it would be that cutting costs for the sake of it, or going for the cheapest option all the time, is a false economy, because you'll pay in the end. A famous quote that always sticks in my mind is from Stelios, who ran EasyJet, and he said, "If you think health and safety is expensive, wait till you get an accident." So the idea is to put all the systems and all the controls and all the right people in place so you don't have that kind of thing. Every single company has an incident or things like that, but what differentiates people is that the ones who have the systems and the right people in place, they don't get hit as much as the people who have got nothing in place. They're the ones that we see in front of the courts. They're the ones that we see in the news when they've been fined X amount of people. So that's what we try and do. We try and help you avoid making those decisions. So
yeah, that's great. I'd like to add to that. If there was a fire in business premises, how could they ensure the continuity of their business, continuity of work, placement of staff, the operational services? So if that fire could close the business down, how can they ensure that the insurance company will or will not pay out? How do they know that? They don't. So fire strategy, fire risk assessment, fire safety is a perceived cost, but potentially over the long run, it takes a lot of cost savings. But it's not to say that you should use a tick box exercise in order to do it. Tick box exercise is just a piece of paper. It needs to be bespoke. It needs to be fluid. It needs to have return. It needs to be followed up. It needs to be integral to that business. And then you can start looking at it in a sustainable way and not as a cost.
And like many things, I guess, in many people, isn't there, a quality, cost and speed. And ultimately, good quality work that delivers high quality results isn't necessarily the quickest or the most cheapest thing, but the net impact of what it gives is there's no cost you can put on that, is there?
but the thing is, if they work with us, if they really engage with us, we can help them deal with all of these things, help them be more cost effective, be safe, sustainable, and deliver quality work.